What's going on, friends? Welcome back to Forward Progress, live here on the Forward Progress YouTube channel, part of the Hammer Betting Network and powered by Pinnacle Sportsbook. Guys, I'm producer Jason. You can catch me here every Friday alongside our wonderful guests, our wonderful crew. We got Matthew Freedman of the Fantasy Life to my left, right? I don't know. I can never tell with this. Jack Miller right below me, and then John Laghezza from The Athletic. Let's just jump right into it. But before we do, guys, want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor over at Pinnacle. Pinnacle is the world's sharpest sportsbook and available to bettors in Ontario. Find out what professional bettors have known for 25 years. Everyday competitive odds. Pinnacle should be a part of your available outs. Remember, if you're looking to sign up to Pinnacle, use code HAMMER when signing up. Help support the show. So your trusted sportsbook for 25 years. Bet smart. Bet Pinnacle. Must be 19 plus in Ontario. Please play responsibly. And not available in the U.S. Guys, let's talk about the Thursday Night Football. But before we do, I want to give a quick reminder to everyone in the chat. Smash that like button. Hit that subscribe button. And I already see a couple comments in the chat here asking about props. Towards the end of the show, we're going to get to these questions in the chat. So if you have any questions, hit that subscribe button. You only have to be subscribed for 1 minute, and then you can comment your favorite props for the weekend, and our guests can tell you what they're thinking of your props that you're playing for this weekend. Whether it just be you're curious what you think you guys are going to do in fantasy, or you're leaning one way or the other on betting something, we can help you out throughout the night. So let's just get into today's show here. I want to start off with the Thursday Night Football matchup like we always do. Last night on Thursday, we saw the Bills beat the Bucs 24-18. I mean, it was almost a Bucs win, crazily enough, with those crazy penalties, and then like that Hail Mary that Chris Godwin almost caught. Jack, I want to start with you here. My question for you is, we saw the Bills, pushing the ball very effectively downfield in the first half, scored 3 times. Didn't look like there was any problems whatsoever. But then in the second half, they were kind of like afraid. They had the ball in the 54 times. They were up 2 scores. They could have closed out this game very, very easily. This should have been a 3-score win for the Bills. It ended up only being a 1-score win for the Bills here. There were 4 different opportunities where they had the ball around midfield, and they had 4th and short, and they just didn't go for it. Jack, my question for you is there anything like off or fishy about this offense here? Do you think that do you think that they're playing too afraid? What are your thoughts on this Bills offense in general?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely been points during the year where they've been inconsistent. They still are 3rd in the league in points per game, and they still have good advanced stats. So I'm not super worried from the long term. But I mean, that punt near the end of the game, I saw ranked pretty poorly in terms of I forget what they call it, the surrender index.
Yeah.
Surrender index. So yeah, I think they could be more aggressive from that standpoint, especially considering they have, one of the best short yardage weapons in the NFL in Josh Allen. I also think that, I mean, we saw this a little yesterday, but entering the game yesterday, Josh Allen had a 6% design carry share, which is far lower than he was last year. Last year, that number was around 15%. I think that's something that maybe as we get into December and January and the games that really matter, like a winner go home playoff game, that's when they start to unleash Josh Allen's legs. But yeah, for now, I'm not super worried, to be honest, from a rest of season perspective, but there definitely have been, I think, more downs, I guess, than you would expect from an offense of this caliber.
Yeah, John, what are your thoughts on this Bills offense? Anything off here for you? I mean, they're still top 5 in EPA per play, still top 5 in DVOA. The underlying numbers, they're there, but it's just like, I don't know if it's the philosophy behind it. I'm just not sure. What are your thoughts?
Well, first things first, it took us about 3 minutes for me to get simpatico with my boy Jack. I said that to you literally yesterday, Jay, tell me not, about Josh Allen running, and to expect it as the weather gets colder, as the games get closer, and as this defense, which has now been beaten up on each of the 3 levels, right? Daquan Jones was out, Milano's out, C. Ward is out. Losing impact players at each of the 3 levels is obviously going to kind of manifest. I think we saw that. The unsung hero yesterday was this punter for Buffalo. Maybe that was the answer to your question, Jay. Why go for it around midfield when the guy's just going to pin you down? There had to be 3 in a row that I think he put inside the 8 or closer. 2 of them were inside the 5. So maybe that was part of the answer. I think the key to this is breaking the season down into segments. The shine looks like it's coming off of the Buccaneers. They showed us just a little bit. The thing I'm worried about is the Bills' defense. Like I mentioned, the last 2 series of the last 2 games they played, they made Baker Mayfield and Mac Jones look like freaking John Elway marching down. Right, it was unbelievable, just unstoppable. And those guys are not very good. So that's my worry, is the Buffalo Bill defense, which I think will be good for the offense, fantasy, and props, by the way.
Yeah, and Matt, you just quickly sent me a visualization here of the drives for the Buffalo Bills here. Why don't you take us through and talk a little bit more about the Bills here?
Yeah, I mean, they were awesome in the first half. I believe they scored a touchdown to come out in the second half, and then they did very little. And I would say, like, almost intentionally so, did very little in the second half after they had their big lead. They were just content to try to kind of grind down the clock, play really conservatively, try like not to make mistakes. And that almost ended up costing them the game. And I feel like this is sort of a hallmark of a couple things, like one, having a defensive coach as your head coach. Like they just tend to be a little more conservative. And then two, like previously they've had fantastic defenses and their defense isn't nearly as stout anymore. So like some of the things that you could get away with previously, you can't get away with as consistently anymore. And like the market, the league has caught up on the Bills. Like previously, you kind of like look at historically where Josh Allen / Sean McDermott, where they have been great. Like Allen has been great on the road. He's been great as an underdog. You don't really get Allen as an underdog anymore. And, you know, like they're on the road only half of their games. So, you know, when they're at home, you know, playing against a team that isn't like terrible. The Bucs aren't good, but they're not like the worst team in the league. Like the Bucs have the capability to cover if the Bills open the back door. And that's what they did. And like, I think from a team perspective, a sort of like getting to the playoffs and being able to compete perspective, I'm not worried about the Bills, but from a sports betting perspective of like, can this team cover? Yeah. Like I'm worried about the Bills.
Yeah, I think that's a great point too. And I know a lot of people who had a ton of CLV on the Bills here, 7.5, 8.5, right. And it just like it was disgusting, man. I feel like I think we were talking yesterday. I wasn't sure if you caught that or not. But anyways, we can talk about that after. So let's move on. Quick reminder to everyone, as I mentioned earlier, drop those plays in the chat. We love to get to them, and we'll get around to them after we talk about our 6 player props that we have available for you to hear today. So let's just get right into it. First game we have on the board here is the Saints versus the Colts in the 1 o'clock slate. Matt, you wanted to touch on the Saints side of things. Last week we talked about the Saints, talked about their running game. We talked about how Alvin Kamara was used, but that you're not looking there today, right? You're not looking at Alvin Kamara in this backfield. You're looking at someone else in this backfield. And no, it's not Keandre Miller. No, it's not Jamal Williams. So why don't you tell us who you're looking at in this backfield for the New Orleans Saints?
Yeah, I'm looking at number 3 quarterback, Taysom Hill. You know, it's kind of ridiculous, but over 10.5 rushing yards. My projection is 16.2. I would bet this up to 12.5. The prop of 10.5, it just feels too low given how consistent Hill is involved in the running game. He's had at least 3 carries in every game this year but one. And if you look back to last year, which I think is like a decent kind of starting point, that's when offensive coordinator Pete Carmichael assumed play calling duties after Sean Payton left. Hill has played 23 games. In all of those games, he hasn't been a quarterback. He's been this kind of all-around offensive weapon. So I think it's a representative sample. In those games, he's averaged 5.4 carries for 31.1 yards rushing with medians of 5 carries and 19 yards. So I feel like just in terms of what he tends to do in terms of like 50% of the time, if you're looking at the average, however it is that you're kind of cutting this up, this is a pretty low number. And in terms of the matchup, there's nothing daunting about the Colts defense. They're number 16 in defensive rush EPA, number 18 in defensive rush success rate. It's just like a typical matchup, and I think it's exploitable enough. 10.5, it's just too low. I think this number should probably be priced around like 12.5 to 14.5.
Yeah, fair enough here. And I mean, there's a weird stat. I don't have it off the top of my head. I couldn't find it heading into this show here, but it was something like the Saints historically, EPA per play and yards per attempt, have been doing better with Taysom Hill on the field and off the field. Obviously, small sample. It's not like he plays every single snap here, but when they like to throw out these funky little plays, it seems to work here for them. So a quick reminder for everyone who missed that, we're going to lock in Taysom Hill over 10.5 rushing yards here at -110. And you can find all of our plays tracked on BetStamp. Just check Forward Progress HQ over on BetStamp, spelled FWD Progress HQ. If you search that under the Find Better section, you can find all of our plays tracked live. We're tracking them live on the show as we're giving out the picks live here. So, make sure if you follow those if you ever miss the show. Let's stick with this game, but let's move on to John's bet here. John, you're looking at the other side of the ball. You Saints versus Indy. You like the Indy side here. We saw the Colts and Gardner Minshew kind of, I don't want to say carve up, but kind of carve up that Cleveland D, who's been really good to start the year here. Gardner Minshew and Shane Steichen. I mean, what Shane Steichen done has been nothing less than phenomenal with the roster that he kind of has put together here. He's made Anthony Richardson look very good in his rookie year. Gardner Minshew has looked good under Shane Steichen as well. John, we know you love your reception ladders here. So who are you looking at for the Colts here, and which reception ladder are you looking at?
Yeah, just quickly to it from a macro standpoint, really quick. The reason why I'm really into these receptions, I was tweeting about this the other day, kind of tracking the macro movements of offense in the NFL, which we all know has dropped. We all know there's been this implementation of a lot of preventative coverages, deep to high shells, and things of that nature, as Arnold would say. But what's going on is we're seeing reductions in, just name it, everything. Everything efficiency, points, da-da-da. The only thing going up are actual receptions, which kind of plays into the theory, like I'm saying. Defenses are actually allowing it. And I don't feel that the reception price market, the reception prop market, I should say, has adjusted with this. It's reflecting the declining market overall. So give me Josh Downs again. This is a total misprice. With Gardner Minshew, right, I tried to separate with Richardson and Minshew. So right off the bat, Minshew is top 5 in targeting his wide receivers, something we always want to make sure. That number's over 63%. Downs has more than 5 receptions in 3 of each of the last 3, and 4 of the last 5. 2 of those last 3 were at home, where this game is on the fast track. He went 6 for 97, 5 for 125, 82% route participation with Minshew, and then clearly the number 2 target. 34 targets, 24 receptions for 275. And again, with Minshew, 24% target per route, almost 2 yards per route, 22% of the team target share, and they've converted over 71% of the attempts because of the high probability there, right? We're talking over the middle, we're talking slot work, and that's what we've seen. He's dominating all of the slot work, exactly where New Orleans really falters. They're bottom 5 year-to-date in allowing slot receptions a game. That number is over 8. And slot yards per game. That number is over 88. So, again, this isn't so much about carving up the Saints or even the Colts doing a ton. I just think the only small window that will be open that the Saints are going to allow them to operate within is underneath to Josh Downs. So give me my ladder again. Let's go 3 steps. It's 0.7, 0.2, 0.1. Right, people, we're starting with 1 unit and then divvying that up where if we hit the base rung, the entire venture is a winner. So 5 receptions is plus 160. 6 receptions is plus 330. And 7 receptions is plus 675. Last week, we actually got onto the ladder, Jay. Let's see if we can get all the way up this time. Give me Josh Downs.
I love it here. And Matt, you wanted to touch on the kind of difference between Minshew and Richardson here with Josh Downs. Matt, why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so for most quarterback situations, there's an obvious downgrade when you drop from the starter to the backup. But like this is one of the rare situations where just statistically, like that's not the case. I now have Gardner Minshew as 0.8 points better for the Colts, or like against the spread, than Anthony Richardson. Or at least like this young rookie version of Anthony Richardson we are seeing right now, like at their respective stages in their careers. So and that gap has gotten bigger the more we've seen Gardner Minshew play this year, because Minshew's actually played pretty well. So I think that there within the market might still be some mispricing based on the idea of Minshew being the backup, but like Minshew is actually an upgrade for like the offensive weapons that they have.
Yeah. And I'm just taking a look at the board here. It looks like, John, I think you might have bet this before, because it seems like Downs has moved a slight little bit down towards kind of plus 120 area on that over 5 receptions here. So
these lines do tend to move, especially once I get my tentacles on them. I agree with everything Matt said, except you forgot one thing, Matt. He's also extremely provocative. Have you seen this guy in the jean jacket? Have you seen? Come on. I mean, seriously, the mustache has got to be worth at least half of those 0.8 points, I hope.
It's taken into account.
You can't double count. I don't want to double count.
Yeah.
baked into the model there. I love it. All right, let's move on to Jack here. Jack, you've been absolutely on fire last 2 weeks. 4-0 here on the show, guys. Come on, let's give a quick round of applause to Jack here. We're looking at the Houston and Carolina game for you. Battle of the rookie quarterbacks. Both teams coming out of the bye. Can't wait to see that post-rookie bump for both quarterbacks here. On the Panthers side, we have the Panthers moving off Frank Reich from his play calling duties, passing that along to OC Thomas Brown. Should be a fun game to watch just to see these young quarterbacks go at it. For your prop here, Jack, though, you're looking at the Houston side of the ball. You're targeting a player coming off of injury, coming out of a bye. I love this spot here when you sent it in. I love the look right here. So why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, I don't want to give myself too much credit. Juju was not a win last week because he was out, so that one would be a void.
Pushed.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if that like counted on that stamp or whatever. But I'm gonna go with Tank Dell over 3.5 receptions. You can find it around even money right now. Robert Woods is gonna be out. He has a 20.1% target share, and Tank Dell coming off a concussion and coming off a bye, I think he should be good to go. He's gone over 3.5 catches twice this year, but in 2 of those games, he had three receptions. That first game, he only played 48% of snaps. In that second game, he had 3 catches in 36% of snaps before he left. With the concussion, there's also some narrative work at play, I guess, with the post-bye rookie wide receiver bump. So that helps us. So, yeah, I mean, Tank Dell has been outstanding when he's been on the field this year. And I think that with Woods out, he should be in line for a pretty sizable role in his first game back.
Yeah, and on top of that, the Panthers D has looked pretty shaky here. And Tank Dell, I mean, he's looked great. Among all the rookie wide receivers, he's looked really, really good. And it's kind of a shame that he got that concussion early on in the season because he was like ramping up for a pretty good season. Excited to see him back here. Going to lock in Tank Dell over 3.5 receptions, plus 100. You can find that number widely available. There's a plus 102 out there if you have access to that book. And you want to tail the show, I recommend you go hit that plus 102 instead of the plus 100. But for transparency's sake, we want to hit that plus 100 right here live on this show. Let's move on from that game. Matt, let's go directly into the Sunday night football game here. Give you a little bit of primetime NFL action here with some player props. We got the Chicago Bears taking on the Los Angeles Chargers. And I know me personally, Chargers are 8.5-point favorites. I do not feel comfortable one bit with the Chargers laying 2 points. I cannot do that right now. So we're going to look towards a prop here. And Matt, you're deciding to go up against the enigma that is Tyson Bagent. You're staying off the Bears here. You're looking towards a Charger. Tell us who you got here for this prop.
Yeah, going with Justin Herbert over 9.5 rushing yards. And, I feel like I say this every show, the market is still too low on the pricing for pocket quarterbacks who are still good scramblers whenever they need to get out of the pocket. And Herbert is definitely in that vein. This year, he has 13.3 yards per game with a median of 14. And that, I think, is directly a result of his willingness to turn dropbacks into runs whenever he faces pressure. Last year, his scramble rate was 3%. This year, it is 7%. And that is from our utilization report at Fantasy Life. And that is really the difference, I think, in why he has kind of jumped up a little bit in his rushing yards and why the market on him is a little too low. And if you look at the matchup, every quarterback with decent mobility to start against the Bears this year. So take out Kirk Cousins, take out Brian Hoyer. Those guys are basically just pocket statues. But every other guy, Jordan Love, Baker Mayfield, Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, Sam Howell, all of them have at least 12 yards rushing against the Bears defense this year. It's just kind of like the way that they structure their defense. Quarterbacks who escape the pocket when they are bringing pressure are able to pick up chunk yards. So even with the possibility of some last minute kneel downs, which I hate those because those can kill props like this, even with the possibility of those in there, I still think that there's value with Justin Herbert over 9.5 rushing yards. So I would take this all the way to 11.5. I have it projected at 14.9.
All right, locking in the 9.5 minus 110 here. And you mentioned those kneel downs. Knowing this Chargers team, their defense will find a way to make sure that doesn't happen right there. So, yeah, we're going to lock that in minus 110. Justin Herbert over 9.5 rushing yards here. You can
hold on one second. I was waiting for this one. They were slow to list it. I would go back to the well because I had a few people ask me if I was going to go back to it. Mooney got listed. The prop that we hit that I was alluding to before, Darno, Mooney, those prices got listed exactly the same as last week I would just go back to last week's show. You could play that same 30 seconds of me ranting and raving. Listen, Bajan, just he peppers the wideouts. They do exactly what I was talking about before. They look to work underneath. He's extremely efficient as far as completion percentages go. Mooney is good. Mooney had all 4 of those grabs in the first half. Who would have thought that game was going to be so out of hand? The Bears would be running out backups. If that game was competitive, Mooney would have made it to his 6, 7, or 8 catches. So I think I'm going to go back to the well with that one. He just went up, by the way.
Listen, John, I know it just went up here. So, why don't we just put a half unit on here, a little bonus bet, something we didn't prepare before. But if you're comfortable with it,
I'll take the 4. Again, it's the same. Dude, it's literally the same line. 4 catches is plus 240. 5 catches is plus 575. I can't believe this. 6 catches is plus 1425. The guy had 4 catches in the first half. He plays every single down. I would want to. I wish I was as good looking as Freedman was, but I would use that same clip that he played before. There's an expectation of the market, in particular when it comes to props, when there is a move to the backup, that there's this offensive downgrade. Like he said, in particular, when we're talking about moving away from a running quarterback towards more of a pocket passing quarterback, it's not reflected in the passing props here. I'm all over this Mooney one again. There is no way we have to run this game back 15 times for him to get 6 catches. There's no way.
Yeah, all right. I'm gonna lock. So the play we had last week was 4+ receptions at plus 240 was the start, correct?
Yeah. Even if you just go up to 5, we don't have to go nuts and go to 6, but I think you want to get at least a 7-3 split on the 4 and 5 catches. We got to go back to the well on this one. It might be the last time we're able to.
Okay, I'm gonna lock that in on a half unit, but split it up. I'm gonna do 35.
Yeah, that's perfect.
That's
perfect. I didn't mean to drop it in your lap like that, but as we all know, these props come out. Sporadically, you have to keep your finger on the pulse, your eye on the market, and hit it when it happens. Because like you had mentioned before, the prices will move.
Breaking news. Exactly. It's great.
Yeah.
I love it. All right, gonna lock that in here we got the 3.5 at plus 240. I'm gonna find the 4.5 here in a second, but let's move on to Jack's bet first, so I don't have to meander looking for that prop there. Jack, you're looking at the Atlanta Falcons versus Tennessee Titans here. And when you sent me this prop, I'm not going to lie, I kind of forgot what team this guy played for. Got traded mid-season this year. I was like, wait, is he on the Rams? No. Maybe I just gave away who this prop is for here. But something that John mentioned on Twitter here. John, you were kind of talking about this Atlanta offense. They're kind of been sneaky good the past
Sneaky.
Right? Desmond Ridder, I mean, the public seems to be coming around to him. I'm not buying in just yet, but I mean, Desmond Ridder has been able to pass the ball pretty effectively, getting a lot of yards per game here. And on top of that, Titans are pass funnel. Their defense just they just traded away Pro Bowl safety Kevin Byard. Jack, you're looking at the Atlanta receivers here, so tell us who you're looking at for this game.
Yeah, I'm going to go with, it's not the most fun one in the world, but Van Jefferson over 11.5 yards. Last week, he ran 17 routes. That was a 57% route participation. So he was only traded a couple of weeks ago, but he came in and pretty quickly immediately established himself as the wide receiver 2. And I think there's still room for that 57% number to go up, considering that Matt Collins was in the 60s and even up in the 70s earlier in the season. And when Hollins was the clear wide receiver 2, his number was in the 20s. And so I think that Van Jefferson being the clear wide receiver 2 for this Falcons team against a pretty awful secondary at 11.5, I like the over there.
Yeah, and you can find that at 11.5. The over is a little bit shaded towards the over at minus 115 here. But like you said there's an uptick in usage for Van Jefferson here. Seems to maybe have beaten out Mac Hollins in that second wide receiver role, just based on the trends of snap counts over the last 2 weeks here. And again, they went out and made a move midseason for him, so obviously they plan to use him here. I love that one. Going to lock it in. Van Jefferson over 11.5 receiving yards, minus 115. Next game, let's move it along here. John, I have you for the Jags and Steelers game. Steelers right now, home dogs to the Jags. Steelers are sitting at plus 2.5. And something I noticed about this team, it might be obvious, people might laugh at me, but I mean, I think it's glaringly obvious when you watch this team last week compared to previous weeks. It's just the offense, it seems like night and day with Deontay Johnson on the field compared to him off the field. Last week, we kind of seen this offense look a little bit more like it did last season with Kenny Pickett here, in spite of Matt Canada. John, reception ladders, you know the drill. Well, who do you like?
Give me Jaylen Warren. Again, I just think it's a little bit of a misprice. We got the standard lines at 4 receptions plus 145, 5 receptions plus 310. Let's split a half unit on those, Jay. Since we're already on the Mooney stuff, I don't want to overdo it. And I actually like Mooney more than I like Warren, but I still like this one. Obviously, right off the bat, Deontay Johnson is missing like target sponge. I think he's going to be out if they downgrade him. I'm not really sure, but I do think some targets are going to be available. Everyone is going to be rushing towards Pickens, but I think there'll be enough love to go around. Jacksonville D is a massive, massive pass funnel because of all the 3-4 they play. They're second in the league in 3-4 defense. They're also top 5 in the league in blitz rate. That number's over 21%. Those kind of lead into, right, we've talked about it before, funneling interior pressure and moving the running game kind of horizontally. Also, because of that, I should have said a function at least. Jacksonville's been dead last in running back receptions allowed. Now, I know they faced Kamara, who had, I think, 47 receptions or so in that game. But regardless, even if you just count Kamara as one person, 4 different running backs in the 4 last game have had 5 receptions. So that's the second rung of our ladder. It's happening every game. Warren has had 4 receptions, 3 of 6. And Pickett is top 5 in targeting the running backs. Pittsburgh comes in as an underdog when we see Warren get the majority of his work, in particular long down and distance, and again, bad negative game scripts is what I should say for Pittsburgh. So I kind of need that part to happen for me. I don't know if I'm going to get the 4 or 5 grabs if Pittsburgh comes out really hot. I don't know if that's going to happen, and if they get paced at all. Like once they go down a TD, that running back target rate I mentioned pops up another 5 or so percent. And again, that's all Warren's role. So I'm going to just hope for a couple dump offs and get to the plus money.
Yeah, and there was a slight movement on the Warren 3.5 plus 145 is what you had sent me. It's still available at plus 140 at books. Okay. So you can still go out and get that. The plus 310 though is still available for that second rung at over 4.5 receptions here. So going to split up 50 the half unit here, 35 towards the 3.5. 15 towards the 4.5. And a reminder, of course, all plays tracked on BetStamp here. Locking those in right now. Last one before we head out and get into our Q&A portion of the day here. Matt, you're giving us a ton of primetime action, and I freaking love it because, I mean, these primetime games haven't been doing well on them, so I need a little bit of prop love here for them. So we're going to take a look at the Monday Night Football game between the Lions and the Raiders. The Lions got knocked back into reality last week when they got absolutely torched by the Ravens. And I mean, listen, situational analysis here, but this is like a great bounce back spot for the Lions. 8.5-point favorites at home here. Feels a little light to me against this Raiders D, but I mean, hey, I'm not the one making the odds here. Matt, you're looking towards a player under in prime time. So tell us what prop you like for this Monday Night Football game.
Yeah, I'm going under 84.5 receiving yards for Amon-Ra St. Brown. I have this projected at 76.7. I think I would bet it probably to 81.5. But honestly, I don't know if you're going to need to bet it. I would say like there's a chance that this market even moves up as we get closer to kickoff. So maybe wait and bet this closer to game time. But this is like a sell high spot for me, like 84.5. That is the highest mark in the prop market that we've seen for St. Brown this year. He's gone over 100 yards in 4 games, specifically and back to back the last 2 games. Last week, he led the league with 19 targets. Like this just feels like a point where the market now is inflated and there's probably like a little too much hype based on what St. Brown has done in the short term. And then, you know, you factor in what you talked about there, the Lions at home being massive favorites. I could see the market move even more in their direction. And I think that means a heavy running game for them. And so just fewer targets overall for everyone in the passing game. And then you look at the matchup that they have. It's not a tough matchup by any means, but the Raiders could get back slot cornerback Nate Hobbs, who's been out for the past month or so with an ankle injury. He has returned to practice, so he's trending in the direction of being able to play this week. That will be a big upgrade for them over backup slot cornerback Amik Robertson, who's basically just allowed everyone in the slot to do whatever they want against him. So a tougher matchup that St. Brown will have. And the Raiders, it looks like they could be without number 1 perimeter cornerback Marcus Peters, who missed practice yesterday with a back injury. And so if you have Hobbs healthy and you have Peters hobbled, it's this situation where when the Lions do drop back to pass, all of a sudden you have a little more incentive for Jared Goff not to be targeting the middle of the field, but instead to be targeting the outside receivers going against a backup cornerback there. So I think you just put all of that together and that puts me towards the under of 84.5.
Okay, the under 84.5 here, receiving yards, find that at minus 115. There's still one minus 110 up there. So yeah, you can play that minus 110 for transparency purposes. We like to take a number that's widely available here. So we're going to go with the 115 here. And I mean, that just about does it for our plays. We've got a couple questions in the chat. I'll get to them very quickly so I can get you guys out of here. One question coming from Josh. He's asking if you're buying the floor of Devontae Smith here. Matt, let's start with you. Devontae Smith's lines at 49.5. Josh is leaning towards the over at minus 120. Said opportunities have been there versus a very leaky Commanders D. Matt, what are your thoughts on Devontae Smith on his over 49.5 receiving yards at minus 120? You buying the floor here for Devontae Smith?
Yeah, it's an interesting buy low spot. 49.5 is the lowest mark that he's had in the prop market this year. Against the Commanders in week 4, he had 78 receiving yards. And he's 2-5 in his prop yardage performance this year. So like that's not sustainable. Like he's a good player. At some point there is a bounce back, and it feels like given where the number is now, this is probably a good place to invest.
Yeah, and I mean, there's also there's tweets that I saw out throughout the week about how the Commanders gave up so many receiving yards to that number one wide receiver out in against them, AJ Brown. I mean, if I'm the coach of that team and I see tweets like that, I think maybe I'd invest a little bit more towards AJ Brown. Who knows, Jack? Are you looking at anything here with Devontae Smith over 49.5 receiving yards at minus 120 against the Washington Commanders defense here?
Yeah, I think over is the only way to play it. We have him around 57, 58, which I think on mean versus median it would still be a slight over, but I don't know how that stacks up when you factor in minus 115 on prop. So I do think over is a fine look. I expect Smith's volume to come back at some point. A little weird, honestly, that it hasn't come back to this point. But I mean, 49 is just such a low number for him. We don't show it as like a smash value, but that's the side I would lean if I were to pick one.
Yeah, remember, if you're ever in a situation where you're not happy, just complain like AJ Brown, and you'll just get fed tons of targets week after week after week. John, anything you like here other than what's already been said?
Yeah, I think they both nailed it. This is a matter of market dynamics and people generally weighing the most recent thing they've seen too heavily. He has gone over this number twice, and we had some injury concerns, and I think we're starting to get further away from. He's an excellent player in a smash spot on a great offense with a really low total. I'm with Jack. If you're going to play it, it's got to be over. You really should be feeding it, if anything,
Yeah, fair enough here. Let's move on to the next question we have is just about Trey McBride here. Zach Ertz, John, I'm going to start with you. Arizona Cardinals playing the Baltimore Ravens here. Baltimore Ravens D looks fantastic. Zach Ertz is out. Ravens D is very, very stingy against tight ends, and that linebacker core is a nightmare for opposing offenses, said Josh. So he's looking towards maybe the under 31.5 at minus 110 for Trey McBride here. I mean, I'd be afraid to go up against this Ravens D. This Ravens D does look stingy. They look very, very good. They're coming into form here. And I mean, like he said, linebacking core is very good against tight ends. John, I don't know if you have the stats pulled up for us right here, but what are you thinking towards the under 31.5 for Trey McBride, at minus 110 here?
Well, I think the rational center point for that argument is in place that it's Baltimore. That said, I don't think I'd go under. McBride had the pathway to playing time cleared for him. And if I'm not mistaken, Arizona has paced the entire league by leaps and bounds as far as tight end targets, right? We saw, Zach Ertz, like way long in the tooth, totally dusty, sucking up crazy targets. So I'm afraid if McBride is even a little bit better and can create a little more separation, he's another target that's going to be close. Baltimore is going to be collapsing the pocket, not giving a lot of time. So if I were looking to go under, I'd be looking to go under on the wide receivers that need routes that take more time to develop. I'm afraid again, it's not like I think McBride's a smash spot, but we're talking about 30 yards and a guy that could see 10 targets. So I'm probably fading the under. I think I'd want to see his utilization first.
Yeah, Matt, you got anything here for us with Trey McBride under 31.5 minus 110? I haven't taken a look at the injury report for this game yet, but Kyler Murray was weirdly not listed on the injury report.
He's off the injury report.
Yeah, it's really weird. We don't know if he's going to play or not. So, yeah, what are your thoughts on this, Matt?
Yeah, I'm skeptical that Kyler Murray ends up playing. I don't know how much that would factor in either way. I have him projected right now, Trey McBride, at 35 yards receiving, but the official Fantasy Life projections are a little more pessimistic. They're at 24.6.
Oh, wow.
The injury report front, it is, I think, notable that Marcus Williams, free safety, is still out. Dealing with a hamstring injury, didn't practice multiple days. I would expect him not to play. So that is at least like a small upgrade for McBride in terms of like the matchup. But for me, it's probably just to stay away.
Yeah, I like that. Jack, any thoughts for us here other than what's already been echoed?
Yeah, I agree with these guys that I would not take the under, given Arizona's thrown to tight ends 31% of the time, and McBride should be out there pretty much every play.
I mean, great analysis here from
the Jack.
guys. Yeah,
Jack, given what you just said, would you bet the over?
I would if I had to pick a side, I'd lean in. I can look what we have right now. I mean, I would don't expect Trey McBride obviously to go out there and get
31.5%.
31% of targets.
It's a big number.
But we have 39. So I don't know. I mean, on tight ends, there's going to be a pretty big mean median difference.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if I were to pick a side, it would be over.
Okay.
Interesting. Very interesting stuff here. Yeah. Hopefully we gave you guys enough information with regards to Trey McBride here. And if you're considering starting him or sitting him in fantasy, who knows, or betting is over, whatever you want, do with this information what you will hear, guys. That just about does it for us here on the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Before we head out, hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, follow along so you can stay up to date with all what's happening with the Forward Progress YouTube channel. We have videos coming out every Monday to Friday, 2 to 3 p.m. live on this channel. We appreciate the growth. We appreciate the support. It's been awesome to see. And quick reminder before I head out here, Sunday live at 11 p.m. Eastern every single week. Rob Pizzol is live for the Pizza Buffet, where he runs through the entire NFL slate, picking off the games that he still likes with odds still available on the board. It's nothing like if you're missing some Sunday bets, head over to Rob's stream. It's live right here on this YouTube channel. And I mean, you get a little bit of action for Sunday. It's a lot of fun here. And then one more thing before we head out, at 8 p.m. Eastern on Sunday, every Sunday, we take a look at the week ahead. So this week we take a look at week 8. This Sunday we'll take a look at week 9, look at all the opening lines, courtesy of Pinnacle here, and we'll run through and try and get you guys some CLV throughout the show. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Smash that like button, hit that subscribe button, tweet at us, let us know that you like this show. Really, we do appreciate the support here. So for myself, for Matthew Freedman of the Fantasy Life, for Jack Miller of Establish the Run, for John Laghezza from The Athletic, guys, this has been Forward Progress, powered by Pinnacle, right here on the Hammer Betting Network. Guys, good luck on your bets this week.